When we last left off, the Autobots have successfully been able to get Optimus thanks to the efforts of Arachnid on the ship and Balerion on Cybertron. However, due to the relic hunt and a lot of events taking place differently, during the episode Armada, Arachnid winded up getting into a trance and, well, going into coordinates that she felt connected to, and winded up meeting the new Insecticon king, that being Inferno, who has pretty much offered her a place of position as his queen. However, it's more of a whether you like it or not kind of situation, and that's where we leave off. Arachnid does simply laugh in the face of Inferno, saying that while she's flattered, she would actually not be joining him as his queen. She's already taken. To which Inferno simply states, yes, I've seen everything going on, and I've kept my distance for a while. But now is simply the time for me to, how do you, Cybertronians, or how do you Decepticons say it? Rise up, yes. So now you have only one option. Join us or die. And to which this is where a voice says she does have another option. And this is where we actually see Balerion, Crimson, and Frost actually fly into this cave and, well, each taking their position, with Balerion landing right in front or right behind Arachnid, his imposing form simply causing the Insecticons to back away, as Crimson and Frost, both of close and similar size, simply just kind of circle the army, if you will. And this is where they all find out that, well, yeah, Arachnid did wind up coming here, and it really wasn't of her own free will, but she winded up being smart enough to make sure that the Autobots were tracking her. And so Balerion and his dragon team went to go and get her. So how does this pretty much unfold? Well, Inferno, seeing that he's really just outmatched, at least at the moment, does allow Arachnid to leave. But he does warn her the next time he encounters them will be her last. Now, let's actually talk about how the rest of this episode goes. Inferno does manage to, well, have every Insecticon rise up. Meanwhile, at the same time, Starscream does activate his clones. But keep in mind, there is a slight change to this timeline. With him having a much more perfected form of the synthetic energon formula, he's actually capable of using it to power his clones, meaning each clone is stronger, faster, and a lot more aggressive. Or at least, considering there is different personalities of Starscream, some of these personalities are a bit more amplified than before. And this is actually one of the more interesting parts about it. We have the fact that once they get to the warship, or they barely get there, as during this time, the Insecticons have already made their move. But due to the amount of chaos that's pretty much going on, the Autobots have no other choice but to really step in. So we essentially have the Autobots and Decepticons working together to take on this Insecticon horde. We even see Balerion, Frost, and Crimson pretty much dive bombing them from the sky with their elemental breaths respectively, just straight up blowing up, freezing, and just shattering multiple Insecticons, while the Autobots are on the ground dealing a hefty amount of damage to the others. However, this leaves one thing, that being Inferno. Understanding that the Insecticons won't follow anyone unless, or anyone else but their leader, Arachnid decides to, well, take it upon herself to get rid of Inferno. And so she utilizes her burrowing ability to make her way to Inferno, and the two commence a battle. Now, due to Arachnid's skill, she is able to put some hits or put some moves on Inferno. However, Inferno takes out his fire blade and slices off one of her mandibles, or one of her, spider-like appendages. I'm sorry, I said mandibles. What the heck? So, slicing that off, and he simply does manage to, well, beat the mess out of Arachnid. However, as fate would have it, while it would have been a reluctant choice, RC is the one to drop kick Inferno. And this allows her and Arachnid to actually tag team him, with Arachnid webbing him up and RC drop kicking him once again into a stasis pod, having him locked in there. And this is one of the more interesting parts, as when the Insecticons pretty much stop attacking, they all bow to Megatron, with Hardshell actually being a bit more upfront earlier and pretty much telling him that we are sorry that we followed a false leader, Lord Megatron. So, Megatron gets an Insecticon army. Albeit, I guess you could say there are a few more damaged parts than, or damaged members than the original, but hey, I guess Knockout's got some work to do, huh? But believe it or not, with this episode pretty much concluding, how would they handle the situation afterwards? Well, believe it or not, I would actually say Agent Fowler's team tries to confiscate everything. However, little do they know that Mech has already gotten hold of the few Insecticon remains that have just been, lying around, and they just simply dragging them off. Meanwhile, we have Silas, who was actually there the whole time, watching everything, remarking about how Balerion is just such a magnificent creature. And now he cannot wait to recreate a species that he now knows has been extinct for so long. And this is where we would actually pan out back to the Mech base, where we actually see the skeletal remains of a prehistoric but mythical creature. And that's where the episode will close off. But hey, let me know down below in the comments section about what mythical creature is Silas looking at. What is the fossilized remains that he's looking at? And can the Cybertronian tech bring this creature back to life and have it be more destructive, more devastating than it was before? But hey, I'll let you guys figure that out for yourself. But now it's time for the relic hunt. Now you might say, whoa, what happened to Flying Mine? Never happens. Bulkheads never fell into the Energon mine in this one. So, believe it or not, the Decepticons never have to go through that. But now we have to talk about the episode Tunnel Vision. With them having more troops or more team members in this one, this means Team Prime can actually be a lot more safer in this one. So believe it or not, I think Tunnel Vision would be the episode that stays relatively the same. Except we have Knockout and Breakdown still here. Breakdown's still alive. Arachnid's never been with the Decepticons past the first season. She's never been on their warship besides being captured at the end of season 1. So this means that with her on the Autobots, Breakdown's alive and well and can have more time. Yay! So, believe it or not, Tunnel Vision is going to go the same. However, I would say the Autobots have a lot more difficulty. And this is because of, Breakdown and Knockout's chemistry. Knockout is still a lot braver in this timeline, meaning he puts up a far better fight against RC. Do I think RC still beats him? Yeah, she can. But, Electric Prod is just kind of busted for some reason. So, yeah, it's just... it is what it is here. But again, yes, the Autobots do get the phase shifter. The next episode is Triangulation. Now, believe it or not, I think this one can honestly take place, believe it or not, I think this takes place a lot better in the story, believe it or not. I think this is the episode where Optimus went to the Arctic, if I remember correctly, and Optimus doesn't go by himself. He goes with Depth Charge. And this provides a whole new different outlook, as with people like Dreadwing, Skybite, Rampage, and then you also have Starscream, who still has his synthetic Energon clones. And he still has his T-Cog. So this episode just gets a whole lot more complicated, believe it or not. And I think this episode gets vastly dangerous, especially with the likes of Dreadwing. And I'm actually going to say Dreadwing and Skybite are the ones to actually go after the Apex armor. Now, this episode is just nothing but chaos from start to finish. There's no way. There's no way I could really have this episode not be chaotic. Having five Starscream clones, having Dreadwing and Skybite, and just Optimus and Jet Charge having to really get through their relationship together. And believe it or not, I think they do resolve it here. I know it's a little bit cut and dry. I'm not really giving too much detail about it, but just know this episode is a full-blown chaotic festival. That's the thing. Because here's the thing, right? Five Starscreams. I do think two of them do die. And this is due to Dreadwing still, harboring that anger towards Starscream. Or he just doesn't have it just yet and just winds up killing Starscream because, again, the clones are just too troublesome. So he winds up killing a clone. Depth Charge winds up killing a clone. And, well, the Apex armor still gets into Starscream's hands. And this is where I would actually have something different. When the clones get back to, his Harbinger base, and believe it or not, I think he'll be able to get to it a lot quicker. The clones ask for something. They ask for names. To which Starscream is like, you know what? That's a pretty good idea. I ain't gonna even lie to you on that one. And so, this is where he gives them the names Dirge and Thrust. Now, I actually do like these kind of two Seekers because, again, they would actually just represent different aspects of Starscream, and I do think that having just two left, they deserve some names. Plus, let's be real, if I had to kept the other two alive, I would have named the other one Ramjet, and then the other one I would probably name something a little bit different. I don't know, I might have even used an old Autobot name to name it. Probably something like Blaze Master. Ooh, matter of fact, that does go hard though. Now I kind of wish I did leave those two clones alive. But hey, what's done is done. So, Optimus and Depth Charge do come back a lot stronger than they were before, but unfortunately the Apex armor is in the hands of Starscream, while his clones do go through, I guess you could say, some cosmetic changes, new colors and everything, right? So, triangulation still happens the same. Next one is triangle, and this one happens differently. Ratchet does go, but he doesn't go with just Wheeljack. He goes along with Strongarm. To actually, she's still new, still the rookie and all that, and she goes to basically get the relic. All right, she goes with the relic, and believe it or not, I think this episode plays out a lot better. I think that with Strongarm and Wheeljack being the ones to fight against Soundwave, yeah, Strongarm is the weak link, but she is still experienced enough to where she can hold, her ground and not just get totally raffle stomped, in my opinion. So Wheeljack does carry, but Strongarm does get her a good elixir on Soundwave. And believe it or not, the Renaissance Blaster, I would actually say, still ends up in the Decepticon hands. Now you might say why, and I'm just gonna say it like this: it's Soundwave. Imagine Soundwave having to actually try this time. Like I think that would be terrifying. Like Soundwave was already, kind of just lazily playing around with Wheeljack, and then Wheeljack kind of just took advantage of that. Now having two Autobots there and a relic on the line, I actually do think Soundwave would take this a whole lot more seriously. And honestly, he would likely dominate. I think Soundwave doesn't even get his visor cracked here because he's taking it seriously. So this means he gets the Renaissance Blaster. Ratchet still does the thing with Laserbeak, but again, it still gets discovered because, again, Soundwave is just very perspective altogether. So believe it or not, yeah, unfortunately, they don't get the exact kill on Soundwave, but they still get that whole backdoor network through, the Icon database. Now, the next episode is Toxicity. Now, this happens differently. Bulkhead doesn't go alone in this one. He actually goes with Balerion, Frost, Crimson, and Arachnid. Having 5 Autobots to actually go in this one just makes it better. However, they have to deal with something else. Megatron and Rampage. Yeah, this gets really intense. Rampage obviously comes in on the ground, or better yet, I would actually say he rides on top of Megatron, bombarding the Autobots. However, with them seeing the fact that they're kind of out, kind of need to get the toxicity out of there. This is where Balerion pretty much states that Arachnid is the one that's going to be guarding Bulkhead while he transports the toxicity or toxin, excuse me, to the volcano, while the dragon told off Megatron and Rampage. And so Balerion takes off into the sky and full force rams into Megatron. And then when Megatron is about to transform and take out his Terratech's warp sword, Balerion slams into his back yet again, causing him to crash into the side of the volcano, where the two of them pretty much engage in a heated duel, while Rampage has to deal with Frost and Crimson. And believe it or not, this turns into a Jurassic Park beatdown. I'm going to flat out say it like it is. They start ragdolling Rampage. Rampage is able to kind of keep himself distant with his double change or his triple change abilities, where he turns into a crab and is able to like kind of grapple with them for a little bit. But there it's a 2 against 1. Even against 1, I think he would just not do to a whole lot. So believe it or not, Rampage gets frozen solid and the two of them go ahead to jump Megatron. Meanwhile, this means Arachnid and Bulkhead are able to deliver the toxicity or the toxin to the volcano, right? And just drop it in there. It's like that. Meanwhile, Megatron has no other choice but to simply retreat at this point, as again, it's a 3-on-1. And, well, unfortunately, even the Terratech's warp sword is enough. However, when Megatron flies off, he spots something. Skeletal remains, something that fascinates him. It's of a dragon. Something more primal, destructive, and he feels some type of energy rating on it. It's malicious, it's evil, and he likes it. So when the Autobots leave, he gets Rampage out and tells him, if you want to make up for your failure today to even perform, you're going to get that. Lord Megatron, you want me to dig that up for you? Yes. Or simply take the skull of the beast and come with me. To which Rampage winds up taking this dragon skull and, well, winds up leaving. Now, the episode Hurt doesn't happen, so we can actually put a different episode a little bit ahead of time. Out of the Past. Now, this one actually takes place differently, as now they have another relic to get to. However, it's in somewhere that Balerion thought he would never have to go, like ever again. The ancient ruins in Europe. To which Balerion's a bit confused, like, what do you mean a relic is there? Like, that place was confiscated. Everything was, wasn't it? To which Ratchet simply looks at the scanners and says, well, according to his data, not really. Everything here is just, well, yeah, it should have been gone, but apparently something's still there. To which this is where Balerion decides to tell Optimus that he's going himself. To which Optimus recommends that he at least bring someone in case the Decepticons show up. So this is where Arachnid obviously volunteers and they pretty much go together. So pretty much going through the ancient ruins of this old castle, Balerion feels a bit uneased, but at the same time proud. This was the kingdom where he vanquished another dragon, a mad king that became one anyway, with the same powers that made him. So he's wondering what the heck is going on. And this is where Arachnid, utilizing the scanner, picks up on the relic. It's Merlin's staff. And Balerion looks in absolute disbelief. He never thought he'd see this again. In all his years, he thought this relic was gone, dusted, ashes. He burnt it, right? Or was that an illusion of the staff to make sure that no one else would find it? Merlin's always been a crafty wizard. But this is where Balerion tries to destroy it. And Arachnid simply states, wait, what if we just take it back? There are no Decepticon prisoners, obviously, because of Starscream. And, well, they're kind of want to study it. What if Ratchet wants to study it? And I mean, I know this is from your past, but think about it. This could maybe be an advantage in the war. Balerion, thinking about it at first, then begins to kind of give in. However, this is where they kind of get a rude interruption by Megatron, Skybite, and Dreadwing. So now they have a fight on their hands. And well, because it's a 3 against 2 and Megatron is pretty much able to hold off Balerion, while Arachnid is in a position to where she gets captured by Dreadwing and held at, I guess you could say, sword point, while, well, Skybite simply, is with Megatron trying to fight Balerion. This is where they are pretty much offered a deal. Arachnid in exchange for the staff. And without any hesitation, Balerion does give him the relic, while Dreadwing, being the honorable one, does give Arachnid back to Balerion. And while back at base, he does feel a bit bad and angry that he had to give up the staff, this is where he tells Arachnid he would do it again every single time. And this is where he and Arachnid also have their first kiss. So Megatron decides to use the staff to resurrect the dragon's remains, combining it with some of the leftover Cybertronian technology or maybe some dead corpses from the Insecticon's initial attack on the warship. And so as the Cybertronian ally combines with the skeleton and basically makes a dragon very similar but noticeably bigger than Balerion. And this dragon is the Cannibal.